Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, the Customs Brokerage RFP Process, the Do's and Don'ts. My name is Bernie Hart, and I'm the Vice President of Customs and Trade Business Development here at Flexport, and I've been in international trade for more than 30 years in technology, consulting, operations, brokerage, sales, business development, and so forth, and I will be the moderator for today's call. Before we begin, let's go over a couple of housekeeping items here. On your screen, you can see multiple application widgets you can use. You can expand your slide area or maximize it to full screen by clicking on the arrows in the top right-hand corner. A copy of today's slide deck is available in the additional materials in the bottom left. I'm going to ask that you please ask questions through the Q&A widget on the right-hand side. We're going to try and answer as many of those questions as possible during the webinar itself. Now, as we go through the overall webinar, please feel free to start asking your questions. You can ask questions about the brokerage RFP process, but you can also give us some insights for additional webinars that you are interested in, because at Flexport, we're always interested in bringing back valuable insights to you. So please feel free to share that information with us. I've got a quick survey at the bottom right as well. So if you get the opportunity throughout today's discussion, please take that survey for us. I want to also make you aware of there is an on-demand version of this webinar that's going to be available shortly after the webinar, and that can be accessed through the same audience link that was sent to you earlier. Also, within the presentation itself, we have inserted a couple of polling questions to get your direct feedback. Now, when those polling questions come up, I'm asking for your active participation in those. I'm going to give you about 20 to 30 seconds to please select your poll answers, and then we'll kind of quickly walk through those overall results. One thing here from an overall legal perspective here, lastly, please keep in mind that all the information provided in this webinar is presented based on the situation at the time and may not be customized to your specific situation. I am joined by my two esteemed colleagues here, both Tom Gould and Shamita Shah. I'm going to give a quick introduction for both of them. Tom leads our global customs organization here at Flexport. Prior to Flexport, he was the Senior Director of Customs and International Trade for Sandler, Travis, and Rosenberg. He is a member of the U.S. CBP's Trade Support Network and served on the board of the Foreign Trade Association. We are also joined by Shamita Shah. Shamita Shah is our Global Customs Business Development Manager here at Flexport. She is a 15-year veteran in trade, compliance, and brokerage, and brings to our discussion today a wealth of knowledge and subject matter expertise. One of her key focus areas is technology and data. So she'll be sharing those insights with us today. As we move on, I want to share with you quickly here what we're going to be discussing, these 6 key areas on the do's and don'ts for the customs RFP process. The first is the internal stakeholders. Who should be involved in the process and why? Then we're going to get into intentions. What are your goals and objectives in establishing a broker relationship? The third area is technology. Technology becomes a true differentiator with selecting any broker partner. Supply chains are all about data and visibility. So how will you leverage your relationship with your broker for competitive advantage? The next is compliance. From a compliance perspective, compliance is openers for any broker relationship, but everybody needs to be aware of and planning for any changes to regulations. How will that work between yourself and your broker? Who's going to be doing what when a regulation changes, by way of example. The next is reporting. From a reporting perspective, it's always critical to get information from your brokerage partner. Excuse me. There are daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly reports, but all of those reporting mechanisms should really focus on 5 key areas. That's cost, quality, cycle time, customer satisfaction, and compliance. And then finally, we've got cost. From an overall cost perspective, do you and your management team understand the true cost of your brokerage relationship? Yes, the entry fee is key, but what about accessorial charges? What about exception management? What about the cost and the timeliness of resolving exceptions, the escalation process, the communication process? Those can all be hidden costs to your overall environment. So I'm going to be turning it over to Tom Tom in a second here, but again, a quick reminder, please ask questions through the Q&A widget on the right. And again, we're going to answer those throughout the webinar. We've also included an RFP checklist for all of you to download, located in the right-hand corner under additional materials. So with that, Tom, I'm going to turn over to you.
Well, thank you, Bernie. Thanks for the introduction. Really appreciate that. So as Bernie mentioned, we're talking about that customs broker RFP process. You've come to the decision that it's time to start looking at your customs brokers, and you're looking to see, should we be bringing on a new customs broker, and who should we select? So the first question that I recommend that you ask when you're looking at this is, who are the internal stakers? So who from the company should you be including in these discussions, and who should be leading those discussions? And from what I've seen with different clients, I've seen different organizations within a company leading the discussions. Typically, it's customs operations, it's compliance, or someone in one of those departments. But I've often seen the RFP process led by, especially for companies that are more integrated, I've seen it led by the IT department or someone else. But what you want to do at kind of like the first stage, once you've decided that you are going to go out for an RFP with brokers, and that is to look within your own organization and decide who is going to be involved. And then I recommend that you set up a team and set up a regular cadence where you're meeting with the team, meeting with people from your, for example, we said the compliance department, if there's going to be any type of integration, or if you're going to be using any of your systems to supply the broker with data or to receive data from the broker, then you need to include both, your people from your IT department, along with your technology subject matter experts. And then, of course, you need people from your customs operation team. Those are the people that are going to be dealing with the customs broker day to day. And you also need to look at in the logistics department, and how are they going to be involved in the process? And then, of course, with any decision for a new vendor, legal and potentially vendor procurement, those types of people would be involved as well. Let's see. I think we are on to our first survey question, Bernie.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Tom. So thinking about customs at your organization, what are key pain points for your company? We've got 4 categories here. There's customs delays, there's duty minimization, keeping up with industry regulations and compliance, and then finally overall costs. Now, you are not limited to one answer. Please select all that apply here. And I'm going to just pause for about 20 or 30 seconds to give you a chance to submit your polling questions. And all you have to do is hit the submit button, and then we'll tally these up and kind of take a look at what's on everybody's minds. And again, just go ahead and select your options. You can select more than one and then hit submit. And I'm going to wait just another 3 or 4 seconds here. Great. So let's see how we did here. So look at nice split we've got here. So customs delays are very, very big. Duty minimization, duty avoidance. Keeping up with industry regulations and compliance is key. Yep, compliance is always a major factor. And then obviously another one here is overall costs, also weighed pretty heavily in. So a very nice distribution here about what everybody is concerned with when dealing with their broker relationship. So that is good to know. Good. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next agenda item, which is intentions. So I'll turn back over to Tom and Shamita, who will both be talking to us on this slide.
Thank you, Bernie. So we start off the process by identifying internally who are the stakeholders. And the next question that we really want to address is, what are the intentions? What are you looking for in the way of a customs broker? Are you looking for price? Is your decision going to be made strictly based on who's going to come in with the lowest cost? Or are you looking for a broker that is going to be able to provide additional capabilities, additional services for you? some of the questions, some of the things that you want to look at is, are the brokers that you're considering, are they experts in your industry? So for example, if you're in the automotive industry, do you want to bring on a broker that is where their focus is on, another industry, maybe the apparel industry or the pharmaceutical industry? Maybe so, maybe they have those areas of expertise, but you do want to ensure that the brokers that you're dealing with have that experience in your industry. They're familiar with your products, they're familiar with your issues, and so forth. Some of the other questions that you want to look at is, is the company CTPAT certified? I would hope that most of you on this webinar are CTPAT certified, and if you are, that's just kind of be table stakes, right? You need to be working with a broker that is certified. If you're going to be working with a broker in multiple countries, you want to make sure that they're AEO certified in the countries where you're going to be using their services. Another question to ask brokers is, how many licensed customs brokers do they have on staff? How many experts do they have that are available to help out with any issues or with any opportunities that may be available to you? Another question that you want to be looking at is capabilities. And one of the capabilities that I am seeing much more in demand today, and I'm seeing this a lot because for a number of reasons, and that is data, the granularity of the data. One of the questions that comes up very often in having discussions with customs brokers is, how detailed are they able to get with data? So we all know here in the US, you can run reports out of the ACE web portal, and you can get reporting on your import. But the reporting that you can get out of ACE is simply at the HTS level. You cannot get details down to the product level, to the style, to the SKU, to the part level. So one of the questions that you want to be asking your broker is, will your broker be able to fill that gap and provide you reporting similar to the types of reporting you get from the ACE portal, but can they give it to you at the part level? Another question, especially if you're looking for a global customs broker, is, are they able to provide reporting in a single report for multiple countries? How is the broker able to handle the reporting for unusual transactions? For example, can they provide you with a duty saving report where they not only calculate the duty that you pay to customs, but they calculate the duty that you would have paid had you not taken advantage of a free trade agreement or first sale or some other duty saving strategy? And are they able to report that back to you? Another question that we're getting today is reporting on carbon cost. So because the environmental issues are so important, we're looking at, companies are looking at, what is the carbon cost of our imports? And is your broker the one that's going to be able to report that for you? Companies, you want to make the decision, are you looking for a full service broker, or are you looking for a broker that's going to handle just a specialized part of the business? For example, there are border brokers that only operate on the borders and versus full service that handle air, ocean, and truck shipments. Are you looking for a broker that's going to be proactive, or are you looking for a broker that's going to be reactive? And generally what you want to do is you start off with a long list, and you want to work your way to a short list of brokers by looking through all of these items and looking at other information. Some other stuff that you should be looking at for your short list is potentially recommendations from colleagues. But another thing is membership in trade associations. Again, that's something that we as customs brokers need to get our information that we can share with you, and we need to get it very timely. So a question to ask is, what trade associations are your customs brokers or your applicants or your candidates members of? What other advisory committees and what other ways are they able to get information for you very quickly? Shamita, you want to share an example for us from a recent RFP?
Yes, thank you so much, Tom, for that. And Tom touched on a key word there being ACE. Most recently, I engaged in an RFP with a client, and we discussed their intentions. Predominantly, their intentions were focused around more visibility. They were hyper-focused on duty mitigation, identifying compliance gaps, and also streamlining the brokerage partners that they were utilizing. They also wanted to set processes across the importers of records and the other business units. So what I did was offer an ACE analysis during the RFP process. And not only did we uncover compliance gaps, but we helped them develop an internal compliance program. And we also found a $1.3 million duty savings opportunity via an exclusion that they were not utilizing. So this is just one example of what an ACE analysis can unlock for you during the RFP process. And if you're unfamiliar with ACE, I will dig into the details on the value of an ACE analysis later on in the conversation. Thank you, Tom.
Great. Thank you, Shamita and Tom. So I'm monitoring the questions that are out there. So I have a question that just came in for both of you here. And Tom, given your background and what you're responsible for at Flexport, I think we'll start off with you with this one, is what is the key difference in Flexport brokerage services versus the competition today?
Thank you for the question. Great. Thank you for whoever asked the question. Great. I think one of the key differentiators, we're a tech company. We're a company that focuses on the technology. We have a platform that all of our data goes into. And I think that the key differentiator that we provide is really that granular level of data and that global access to data. So when our clients that work with us want reporting, they're able to pull reporting at that product level, at the SKU level. If we receive information from you, from your vendors at the SKU level, we capture that data at the SKU level, and we're able to report back to you at the SKU level.
That is wonderful, wonderful. Shamit, anything you want to add to that as we can move into the next section here, technology?
Yeah, I'd also like to add the note on the subject matter experts. Here at Flexport, when I joined, I was surprised to learn how many customs brokers are actually executing on entries versus a data entry clerk. So for me, that was a key differentiator in our brokerage offering here.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to technology now.
So let's talk a little bit about technology. One of the things that you're probably hearing from, I'm sorry, we moved ahead a slide. Sorry. One of the things you're probably hearing within the company is data. Data is important, and data is extremely important to all of our businesses, right? That's how we make our business decisions. One of the things that I thought was rather interesting, I was at a trade symposium with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and the commissioner said something that didn't really surprise me, but I thought it was a really important point, and that is that CBP is one of the largest collectors of data in the world, and they are also one of the most sophisticated analyzers of data. And so Customs is making their decision based on all of that data that you're transmitting to them, and all of your business partners are transmitting to them. And one of the things that you need to understand, or you need to learn and leverage, is that the customs data really is some of the most valuable data that you can see within a company. One of the questions that we are often talking with clients about is how we get the data. And that really is a key issue that is a necessary part of the discussions when we're looking at an RFP with a customs broker, is how do we get the data from you, the data on your products, the data on your shipments, and then how do we send the data back to you? Gone are the days of paper documents. We don't work really with any paper documents. With only a rare exception do we touch pieces of paper. But we still do deal with PDFs and scans of documents. But our more sophisticated clients are actually sending us data electronically that we use to create the customs entry and file those with customs. And we're also receiving or sending back that data to our clients in various different ways. And what I'm showing you here is, I don't want to talk that into a lot of detail about the nuts and bolts, but these are the three primary ways that we receive data as a customs broker from our clients and from various different partners in the supply chain. It could be a CSV file. So this is, think about if your parts database is in a spreadsheet, or if you're able to push your parts database into a spreadsheet. Well, that would result in what we call a CSV, or a comma-separated variable file that we can upload into our system. That's kind of the least sophisticated way of communicating electronically data to your broker. The next way that's been around for quite a long time is EDI, or electronic data interchange. And it's a structured data format that you can use to send data back and forth between from one system to another system. But the modern method is API. API is an acronym for Application Programming Interface, much more flexible and much more adaptable than an EDI transmission. API messages can be sent to multiple parties. Data can be parsed out. You don't have to follow a standard, you don't have to send all of the data. You can send parts of the data. And it's actually a very inexpensive way to implement the communication. But you do have to have the technological ability within your company to be able to share the information back and forth with various trade partners using those APIs. Shamita?
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on the importance of providing a parts database to your customs broker, in addition to integration. Based on the poll earlier, providing your broker with an accurate and sufficient parts database will also mitigate some of those challenges. And your broker should be able to ingest your parts database. And if you're unable to provide one, you should confirm if the broker has the capability during the entry process to capture data in order to build a parts database. And the parts database should consist of the part number, SKU, the HTS classification, country of origin, and PGA detail at a minimum. The parts database should be routinely updated and reviewed by both the broker and you as the importer, and bonus points for the broker if they can also keep an audit log of all of the updates for compliance purposes. Really important factor is being able to provide your broker with that database or being able to build one.
Now, back to that question, and one of the things that I think that differentiates some brokers from other brokers is, now that we've got the data, we talked about transmitting the data to the broker and the broker transmitting the data back to you as the importer. Now the question is, what can the broker do for you with that data, right? The broker, first of all, should be flexible. They should be able to receive data in any of the formats, in any of the different ways that they that you handle data in your own systems. The question, though, is what is the broker going to do with that data to help you be more efficient and more cost effective? Now, one of the things to remember is that as a customs broker, we're constantly looking at the cost that it takes, that our cost, our internal cost, to serve you as the client. And so if you're sending us PDF commercial invoices, we have an additional cost where we have to digitize that data. We're going to have to take that data and put it into our system. Somebody's going to take data that was in a computer system and pushed out on a PDF of a document, and we're going to have to put that back into our system. And there's a cost to that. But if you're able to send that data to us electronically, we don't have that additional cost, and we can come back to you and charge you less for your broker fee simply because we don't have as much data that we're having to enter. So it's not just, and then it's not just transferring the data to you, but it's what we can do with the data. So you want to make sure that your customs broker is able to accept that data and use that data. But then also, what is it that your broker can do by looking at the data and determining the quality of the data? So another big aspect of what we do as a customs broker is we're looking at quality control, right? So we're looking at the data. Oftentimes we're getting a data feed and we're getting some data more manually. Maybe we'll get the purchase order from you electronically, and we'll have to match that with the quantity which comes off of the commercial invoice. So maybe we're getting the commercial invoice as a PDF. And so then the broker is going to have to take some data that's electronic and match it up with some data that's not electronic, put it together. But even if we are getting all of that data electronically, or if we're getting it partially electronically and partially in data, we have to do quality control. We have to look at that data and make sure, are we getting the right data in the system? We want to make sure, obviously, that there's no errors. But we're also looking at that data to make sure that it's reasonable data, right? For example, we want to make sure that somebody didn't fat finger something in their system and put in an extra zero, causing the value to be reported incorrectly, or maybe they transpose digits, causing a country of origin to be reported incorrectly. So that's a lot of what we're doing as a customs broker. And again, the more that you can feed that data to us, the more we can focus on quality control, and the less we have to spend time on the actual data entry. Shamita?
Yep, I'd like to just focus here on cost and in lowering the cost to serve. I can tell you, in participating in RFPs today, we have discussions around what capabilities we have and what we can do to lower the cost for a lot of the reasons that Tom mentioned. If you can provide shipping documents in CSV format versus PDF, if you can provide that parts database, integrations as well, but also allowing your broker to review your ACE data. The broker can review the ACE data for trends and insights in order to understand complexity, seasonality, as ACE serves as a forecast model for your supply chain.
Great, thank you.
And one of the things that I would add to that is, if you're able to share that ACE data with your client, you might learn something, right? You are going to learn how the different brokers, they're going to analyze it differently. They're going to look for different things. This is an opportunity to get something that you can use that can be of value during that RFP process.
That's great. Thank you, Tom and Shamita. So another question came in that I wanted to ask both of you here. So the question is there an advantage to solicit for a combined freight forwarder and customs broker? And what value add features should a broker offer to stand out competitively?
Well, I think that's a great question, and it's a question we get often. It's really a company decision, and it's a decision that your company is going to need to make internally. The issues are very different when you're looking at an RFP for a logistics or for freight, because with freight, you're dealing with a volatile freight market, and you're dealing with a situation where generally your prices are changing from shipment to shipment, with accessorials, with different routing, with all the different aspects of the freight. Whereas with customs, your rate is generally a fixed rate or based on a preset formula. So much per entry plus so much per, maybe line or per classification, however you've set that up with your broker. And so one of the things that I have seen that many companies do is they combine the customs broker and the freight, or they simply allow the freight company that wins the freight bid to be the company that is providing customs brokerage services. Now, what we found is that companies that separate out the two processes and they look for a bid on their customs brokerage separately from their bid on their freight services tend to get a better price, because we're focused on just the customs brokerage and we're not looking at the volatility. We're not building in anything for that volatility, but also generally better quality, because if you're focused on the freight, if your RFP is focused on the freight, you're looking for the price for the most part. You're looking for service as well, but you're not necessarily looking for somebody that's an expert at looking at the data, handling your data, analyzing your data, and ensuring that your data is being transmitted to customs compliantly for you.
Yeah, and
That's
I would
perfect.
add to that,
Yep.
Bernie, I would
Go
add
ahead.
to that quickly as well. If you're utilizing multiple forwarders, therefore utilizing multiple brokers, it could be really hard to have set processes, control points, audit logs in place amongst all of those brokers as well. So that's something also to keep in mind if you're utilizing the freight forwarder for your broker. Should there be 8 to 10 freight forwarders, you would then be utilizing 8 to 10 brokers. And that is really hard to maintain. So just another point there.
Yeah, and think about reporting, right? If you have multiple customs brokers because you're tied to multiple freight forwarders, are you going to be able to get a standard report from all of the companies so that you can analyze your data in a uniform fashion, or are you going to have to receive that data from different brokers in different formats and have to spend time putting it together so that you can analyze it better?
Yep. That's great. That's great. Now, I'm monitoring the questions here. Another good one just came in, and I'll just ask you. I'll start with you, Shamita, because I know you look a lot at the data side of this. The question is duty mitigation reality or just fantasy? How does Flexport technology help with leveraging duties and tariffs? Could you share some insights on that, and then we'll pop it over to Tom as well.
Yeah, I would say we've had a ton of success in the last year when performing an ACE analysis. Last year, we found over $40 million in duty savings opportunities by performing the analysis for our clients. So duty minimization and duty avoidance is not just a buzz term, it's an actuality. If you leverage the data correctly and you look at it from a holistic standpoint, the possibilities are out there.
And I'll add to that. You know, I've spent my career, that was what my business was always based on, was finding opportunities for clients in the data, and it's not a myth. If you think about a typical company that has a lot of imports and you look at their finance department and you look at the number of people that they have that focus on tax saving opportunities, that number is going to be a large number, a very significant number. But if you look at that same number and you look at the number of people in that company that are focused on the tariff savings and the duty savings strategies, that number is going to be minuscule. I've had clients where they've had 500 people in their finance department dealing with tax and finance issues and looking for those opportunities. And they had one person who was responsible not only for the customs, dealing with the customs broker, they were also responsible for all those duty saving opportunities, and most of them are missed. Most of them are missed, and that's why having a partner that's a customs broker that focuses on looking for those types of opportunities is going to be a significant value to you, especially in today's environment. And we'll talk about this in a moment. But you know, the craziness that have been going on with tariffs and all the different tariffs that are applied on different products in different countries, what that does is it creates confusion. And in most cases, unless you really know about the exception or the opportunity to save, you're just going to pay the normal rate. And so having that data and having a good broker that's able to analyze that data for you is going to be key to saving on your duty spend, and also for being able to show the company how much you saved the company on the duty spend.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you both for bringing in some real life insights associated with that. Now, from an overall program perspective, we're going to jump into our next poll question here. How are you utilizing ACE data and technology to unlock duty savings opportunities or compliance gaps? Very appropriate for what we were just talking about. And again, you can select here too complicated, can't work with it. The ACE system is not very fun to work with. We all know that. The next is, are you looking at it for duty savings opportunities? Are you looking at it for auditing and compliance? How about forecast models or other? So please take a few seconds here, select as many buttons as make sense for the button that makes sense for you, hit submit, and then we'll look at this in a second here. So I'll just give you another 20 seconds or so, but please, your feedback is appreciated.
And while you're answering those questions, I want to share with you kind of a concept or a vision that we have here at Flexport, and that is that our customs brokers, we see ourselves as trusted advisors. We don't see ourselves as data entry clerks. And this is a vision that I've brought to the organization, and something that I share with my brokers all the time. And we do that because, back to that question, is that we are constantly looking for opportunities. We are looking for issues so that we can advise our clients of those before they become a problem. And we can advise our clients of the opportunities that are out there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tom. Let's see what the results say here. Too complicated. I knew that was going to be up there, 26% associated with that. Yeah, getting in and out of the ACE portal, pulling data and information, understanding where the data resides, but also how it is stored can be difficult. I'll just offer this out there. If anybody is having any issues or concerns associated with that, please reach out. We'd be happy to walk you through that overall process. Duty savings opportunities. You heard Shamita talk about this earlier. It is a great way to identify potential efficiencies from a supply chain perspective. Maybe it is with an exclusion. Maybe you're not taking advantage of a free trade program that you might qualify for. The next tier is audit and compliance. That is the overwhelming favorite here at 52.4%. So it's great. I mean, everybody should be looking at their ACE data and information. This is exactly what Customs has on file for you as a company, as the importer of record. So you should be looking at that data and information for auditing and compliance to also demonstrate reasonable care. Okay. So thank you all. We appreciate that. We're now going to move on to the next portion here, which is compliance.
Yep.
Shamita, that's you.
Yep. That's you, Shamita. Yep.
Yeah, and never has technology meant more to us, right? From a compliance standpoint, you need a broker that has the tech and the awareness to handle these changes as quickly as they come. And some examples from the ACE analysis that I've run over the last year. When performing the ACE analysis, I've identified inconsistent reporting pertaining to related parties, over 90%. From these reports. I've found mismatch of data pertaining to country of origin and country of export. And I've even uncovered customs brokers that importers were unaware of that they were utilizing. So compliance is a key focus, and the ACE data unlocks a lot of the insights into the gaps on that end.
One of the things that we have seen over the last few years is that what we do as a customs broker, what you do as an importer, has become significantly more complicated. We grabbed a few headlines here from the recent time, but, the different trade and tariffs that we've seen imposed on steel and aluminum, the tariffs that we've seen imposed on products from China, products from Europe, all of these types of things that happen, simply not only do they increase the tariffs, but they also increase the complexity. And we're also seeing other activities going on today, things like the forced labor out of China in the cotton and the tomato industries. And from my discussions with people at Customs, I'm hearing that we are going to be seeing more and more scrutiny placed on tariffs, but also more and more scrutiny placed on non-tariff issues, things like forced labor, environmental concerns, other social issues that are out there. We're going to see those being used, being leveraged by Customs in their day-to-day operations. And what we have seen is that complexity really does lead to opportunities. As long as you're able to master your compliance and you're able to master your data, then you should be able to be in a better position than your competitors. And one of the things that you can do by leveraging that relationship with your customs broker is you can become a better advisor internally within your company. Because if you know about something that's coming down the road sooner than your competitors, and you're able to get that messaging up to your executives in your company, they're able to make better decisions and quicker decisions. So if we know that the next big issue is going to be the carbon content of your shipments, and you have the ability to track that on all of your shipments, you're able to show to your executives the value of you and your team. And that's something that I always strongly recommend that my clients do when I'm talking to the compliance manager or the logistics manager within a company. And that is, you need to be able to be sure that you're on top of all the new issues, and you need to be able to show the direct impact to your company from any of those new issues. So for example, if you're in the wearing apparel industry, have you looked to see the sourcing of the cotton that's used to make the products that you import. You know, this is not something that we normally deal with if you're an apparel importing company, because it's so far back in the supply chain that you may not have that insight. Well, now that you know that that's a big issue, that should be a really big red flag for you and should push you to digging further and further into your supply chain. And how do you do that? Through the data that your customs broker is able to provide to you.
That's wonderful, Tom, as you go through this. So I got another question here that I wanted to throw out to you and Shamita. So what do you think is the most overlooked attribute or quality when considering a brokerage partner? So you shared a lot of information with us today, but if you were to net this down, what would you say is the most overlooked attribute or quality when selecting a brokerage partner?
Absolutely. And I think that's an easy question for me to answer. Most companies look at their customs broker as simply a clerical function of somebody that's going to take the data from certain documents, put it onto a form, and submit it to customs. And they don't look at their customs broker as an advisor, as somebody that's actually looking at that data and looking at those documents and pre-vetting that information before it goes to customs to prevent there being issues, there being holds on your shipments. Your customs broker should be able to look, does the data match from the manifest filing to the bill of lading data to the security filing to the entry filing? Does that data match? If it doesn't, that throws up a really quick red flag to customs. If you think about the process, the carrier sends the manifest data to customs. The importer is responsible for, but generally the supplier sends the security filing data to customs. The importer is responsible for, but a customs broker sends the data on the product and on the shipment to customs. And it all goes into ACE. It all goes into one customs system, or it goes into the customs system in the various different countries around the world. The customs authorities have all of that data in one system, and they're looking for anomalies. So if the carrier says one thing, and the supplier says something different, that's a shipment that's going to be flagged by customs. It's a shipment that's going to be delayed. And if you can have your customs broker look at all that data in advance to make sure that it matches and make sure that it's reasonable and make sure that it's compliant and that it's accurate, then you're going to have fewer situations where your shipments are going to be questioned, your shipments are going to be put on hold, and so forth.
That's wonderful. Shamita, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would add to that. It's just a reoccurring conversation that we're having here with the pairing of a proactive broker that also leverages data, and also leveraging data and viewing it from a holistic standpoint. They're looking at the declarations file, they're looking at the database, making sure that they're classifying shipments correctly, reviewing the SOP, making sure they understand the business rules, looking at your ACE data. That's when brokers can truly identify opportunities. So it's that pairing of being proactive and also leveraging data.
Yeah, that's a great point on the proactive side. Okay. We can move. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to chat about the last slide, old problems in need of new solutions. One of the things that I have seen, and one of the things that really attracted me to coming to Flexport is customs brokerage is an old industry. There are processes that we do today that go back decades, that haven't changed in decades. There was a process, many of you are probably familiar with liquidation. Well, liquidation back in the days of George Washington happened because customs was one of the first acts of Congress back in the 1700s. Liquidation happened by posting the notice on the bulletin board at the Custom House. Well, that notice was posted on the bulletin board of the Custom House until 2017. We have really ancient processes in customs that are around. We have lots of processes today that are still built on 1980s, 1990s technologies. And when you're looking at bringing on a customs broker, one of the key things that you're looking for is, are you going to be working with a customs broker that is using modern technology to handle your transactions? Are they using that modern technology to find those opportunities, to build efficiencies, and to unlock advantages for you that can help to make you differentiate your company from the competitors.
Wonderful, Tom. Thank you. We'll now move on to reporting.
Sure. And reporting, we know that we've talked about that. It's critical. In my mind, reporting is one of the most critical aspects of what the value the customs broker can provide to you. We talked about having multiple customs brokers, and there are companies that choose to do so. But if you do, you've got an issue where you need to look at data coming in from multiple brokers in different formats, and how are you going to standardize those? And one of the things that you're looking at when you're looking at that broker, and I mentioned this before, is the level of granularity, the level of detail that the customs broker can provide to you. Now, the traditional customs brokerage process, for those of you that have been involved in the brokerage industry for a while, you've heard the term rating an invoice. And rating an invoice is where you take that commercial invoice and you look at the invoice, and you as the brokers that I'm referring to, we look at the invoice and we look at the first product on the invoice and we determine the classification and we write the classification on the invoice. And then we look at the second item and we go, oh, that has the same classification. So we put a little ditto mark on that second line, and we go to the third line. Oh, it's the same as the first. And so then what we would, and this is the old process, is we would take that first line, that second line, that third line, and we would sum up the value and the quantities and so forth. And that's what we would report to customs. And that's what we would put in our systems. And so we would lose that granularity as a customs broker, and we would not be able to report back to you what the cost was for a particular product. We could tell you what the cost was for a group of products that had the same classification, same country of origin. But if you want to get the reporting to tell you product by product, SKU by SKU, all of the different information on your imports, you're going to need to look at each and every product as an individual item in your reporting. And that means your broker is going to have to take in every single SKU, assign the classification, the country of origin, the value, the quantity for each of those SKUs, so that they can come up with what was the actual landed cost for each product on a product by product basis. Shamita?
Yeah. So Tom, I agree with you completely. I think that your customs broker should be able to provide reporting on the SKU level versus the classification or shipment level, just so that you could get metrics pertaining to such things as landed cost per SKU. And then also confirm with your broker if there are any fees associated with reporting. If you're not working with a tech-driven broker, creating reporting could be a daunting task for them. In which in turn would then be a cost to you for those reporting fees. So make sure to have those discussions on what their capabilities are from a reporting standpoint, fees associated with it, and the granularity of the reporting. Thank you, Tom.
Sure.
Next slide.
I think we're going to do a poll question, Bernie.
Yes, we got a poll question coming up. Before I go to the poll question here, I do have a question for you that just came in here. Brokerage varies greatly from industry to industry. How do I select the best broker for my industry? So how do I discern that up front, I believe is the question being asked.
Well, I think it goes back to asking those questions and finding out from your broker what industries they currently serve, what industries they have expertise in. If you're and I've worked a lot with the wearing apparel industry as one of the industries, and they use first sale a lot. So if you're a company that's in the apparel industry and you use first sale, you want to ask questions of your broker about their experience and how well they know it. If you're an automotive company and you use free trade agreements like the USMCA, you want to ask questions about what is their knowledge on that USMCA agreement as it applies to the automotive industry. Do they understand the rules and how to calculate the regional value content and so forth? That's what I would recommend that companies do that are in a specific industry in looking at their brokers.
That's great.
And I would
go ahead. Yep.
I would add to that, you can also ask for referrals or recommendations or case studies that they have on industries that are similar to yours. So I would say you can always request that in the RFP process as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Now we're going to do our next polling question here. Do you have insights into your landed cost on a per unit basis, inclusive of duty spend associated with this? Just a couple of answers here. Yes, I feel adequately informed, or no, not enough. So same process as before. Please select your answer and hit submit, and I'll give you a few seconds here to respond.
And remember here, the question is about per unit. So per SKU, per item, what is the cost for that particular individual item? Yeah.
And we see that a lot, Tom, out there, especially when you're looking at ACE data and information. As you mentioned earlier, that's all reported at the HTS level, but the HTS is a roll-up of SKUs or part numbers underneath that. Can you break it out on a per unit basis so you truly know your landed cost? So, and I'm going to give it 5 more seconds here, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at what the results are. Okay. Okay, almost an even split here, but a little bit higher on no, not enough. And then yes, I'm adequately informed. So the no, not enough, one of the key attributes on this, and the key things you should be looking for from an overall brokerage perspective, is what Shamita was talking about earlier, what Tom talked about as well, is being able to have a product library, a catalog, if you will, that has all of your parts and SKUs, and being able to tie that out to your declarations made to customs on the 7501, understanding what those duties, taxes, and fees are, and then being able to prorate those across each and every one of your products that you brought in, because true net landed cost really gives you that competitive advantage. Everyone needs to know what their duties, taxes, and fees are, but you can include in that freight, you can include in that, even as you saw on a previous slide, carbon offsets associated with it. So there's a lot of value in getting that information and data back. So thank you for that. We're now going to walk into or talk about our next, which is cost.
And to me, the cost of the customs broker really shouldn't be a consideration. I really think that that's the case. To me, it's really about what are you willing to pay for the visibility from the customs broker? What are you willing to pay for the expertise, for the really that advice that you can get from the customs broker?
Excellent.
And control what you can do to control that cost, and what you can do to look at things like the overall landed cost. Controlling the cost is one of the aspects that often companies, in my mind, miss when they're looking at bringing on a new customs broker. And that is, we often get RFPs from importers that ask for an all-in cost. They want to know the cost of an entry regardless of the number of lines, the number of PGAs, regardless of the additional work that it will take the customs broker to do the work necessary to file that declaration. And what I can tell you is that as a broker, if we're giving a client a cost that is an all-in cost, we have to make some assumptions that the cost to us for each entry is going to be at the high end. But if you ask for and you get a cost that allows for differences based on different variability, we can give you better costing overall. So as an example, if most of your transactions are electronic, meaning you're able to feed the data to us as a customs broker electronically so that we don't have to do the data entry on most of them, but you have an occasional shipment where you don't, where you have a PDF and we're going to have to do the data entry, and you come to us and say, I want a flat cost, and I don't know how many are going to be manually done and how many are going to be electronic. We're going to have to hedge on the high side, and we're going to give you a higher per entry rate. But if we can break it out so that we can give you one rate for the manual entries and another rate for the electronic entries, overall your spend is going to be less because we have better control over those costs. And you're also then going to have a very clear path to how can you get those manual transactions at a lower cost, because they're segregated out. If you have one cost for everything, it all kind of gets buried into one pile, and your overall cost is going to be higher. We also want to look at things like we mentioned, the carbon cost and the other hidden costs that are out there. Shamita, I think you wanted to talk about hidden costs.
Yeah, predominantly around technology and taking advantage of it. And if you're not utilizing technology, you could be racking up hidden costs in maintaining compliance or due to lack of visibility. Think of late filings, shipments that you're waiting on documentation for, and that's where the technology plays in. Also, speak to your broker about the accessorial fees. Make sure you are clear on what the additional line items could be, PGA pricing, duty outlay percentages, and then discuss if there are any fees associated with integration. A lot of companies could possibly charge for that if they're not a tech-driven company, if they don't have IT resources. So it could be a manual lift for them. So be sure to discuss any integration fees as well.
So some of the key takeaways for our from our webinar is, have an honest conversation with the potential candidates. Set expectations with your brokers. Let them know really what it is that you're looking for from your customs broker. Make sure that your broker really understands what you're looking for, and make sure that they're focused on the right thing. And understand that in today's environment, technology is going to be the key to becoming cost effective, to becoming compliant in your supply chains.
That is wonderful.
We have a few minutes for some questions. Bernie, do we have any more questions?
Yes, we do. We have a couple here, Tom. So I'm going to ask you and Shamita to get out your crystal ball here. So thinking of the future, where do you see the brokerage industry in the next 3 to 5 years? What would you say some of the big avenues are that people should be aware of and planning for?
Well, I would say it's that complexity. We're going to see, we've been seeing tariffs, we've been seeing trade used as a political tool. And I think we're going to continue to see that. So to me, customs brokerage is going to be transitioning from being data entry to becoming advisors, like you use your accountant as an advisor on taxes. Your customs broker is going to be an advisor, not only on tariffs, but also on ensuring a smooth and efficient supply chain.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and going back to the question asked earlier, I think gone are the days where the importer's freight forwarder could be or is the assumed customs broker. And I think it's predominantly due to the impact of the trade war. You should be asking your broker questions pertaining to what consultative services that they offer, and the granular capabilities of their technology. The industry is continuing to move forward towards automation via technology. Of course, industry disruptions are inevitable, but the ability to react immediately and minimize impacts to customers is why technology is paramount to everyday trade, as well as the future for global customs.
I think that's great. Very good answers. Okay, here, so we're about to wrap up here. What you're seeing on your screen right now is an RFP checklist. You can all download this. It's located in the lower right under additional materials. So what I'm going to do here now is wrap this up, but give you a couple of key points here. Again, continue to ask your questions in the Q&A widget on the right. If we don't get those today, which we probably won't here, we'll try to follow up with you and answer those questions for you. And then finally, an on-demand version of the webinar will be available shortly after the webinar, and you can access that using the same audience link that was sent to you earlier. I would also encourage you to save your spot for the next COVID-19 biweekly webinar on our State of Trade webinar series. That's on the bottom right as well. And I would like to thank both Shamita and Tom for sharing their overall insights with us, but also thank all of you for your attendance and active participation today. It is greatly appreciated. And again, we're always looking for your insights and topics that you would like to hear more about. So please feel free to share those with us, and stay safe out there. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone. I do have one last ask as well, and that is if you download our template, and if you are looking to select a new customs broker, please consider Flexport as one of the possibilities.
And I would like to add, please reach out to me if you'd like to learn more about our ACE analysis, and I look forward to connecting hopefully with some of you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you all.